So with that, I'm going to introduce us to our next panelist, who is Malcom Van Harte, who is the head of the Center of Excellence with Control and SCADA and System Ops inside Eskom. I've known Malcom for a long, long time. So really pleased to hand over to Malcom. Malcom, would you like to put your presentation on the screen? And with that, we're going to hand over to you.
All right. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, panel member. It's really a privilege to once again be party to such a discussion, and I think this is quite essential for the evolution of our industry as we transform into a greener and a transformed distribution space. And predominantly, my discussion, and I think Lloyd and Prof has really I think anchored a number of the discussions that we from Eskom distribution has been engaging on, so that we move towards that greener and more transformed distribution space. There we go. Sorry for that. And so in transforming into that new, I think most of the party and panel members has already introduced the whole aspect of the future. I think I'll draw your attention that predominantly the big utility scale IPPs is really migrating towards and is being unlocked with inverter technologies and become easily available. The drop off of cost of these installations are really making accessible for the connection on the distribution side and the customer side, which assists the customer to really transform into a prosumer, meaning a consuming and producing and ability to offset. So the question is, how do we take advantage of this? I think the bottom layer alludes to what Hans and the colleagues, panel members has alluded to, is the wholesale market, the fact that the distribution network will become more effective and efficient, the fact that we will have to be consuming significant amount of data as we transform into the new, and the fact that virtual power stations has been literally, I almost feel that we copied paste our presentations between the last few speakers. But I do believe that a distribution business is obviously has its challenges, and I think I just want to define the problem statement as we move forward. Critical to this IRP is unconstrained. It is really focusing on where the resources are. There is a rethink around how the next IRP will be developed. But as you could see, the blocks at the on the areas, you'll see the green circles on the map really suggest that where those new renewables will connect is i.e. sparsely populated, i.e. very little transmission and distribution networks. So that's the one caveat we need to appreciate. The second one on the far right is that our existing distribution networks are constrained. For the last few years, obviously capital has been reintroduced to generation to support the plant inefficiencies, and this actually resulted into a significant challenge around meeting customer needs, meeting the energy requirement, and meeting the grid code requirement, and therefore constraints does exist. Hand in hand with that is that capacity does vary, and if you look at the hosting capacity on the far left, you will significantly see that hosting capacity does change as you significantly, and depending on what type of renewable does this. And the duck curve has been alluded to, and the question is, how does distributors, and this impact will be significantly on the distribution side, how do you remunerate those distributors as we move forward? The one on the far left of your physical, and this is just illustrative purpose for discussion and not for necessarily having a look, is how your physical distribution networks become more active. And it's more active is out of these 10 customers that applied for a renewable connection, guess what? The first 3 received it. The next 3 had to pay for strengthening, and then the last 3 or 4 has actually benefited from all that strengthening. So the question is, how is this equitable? First come, first serve, considering that the spare capacity has really been paid by all customers. And this remains a challenge on the distribution network, considering there's only so much capacity, and obviously to maintain voltage constraints as we move forward. So in this context, this is where South Africa is. We need to embrace the transition around the energy transition in a fair and equitable manner. The IRP has given us clear signals for the industry to evolve and to become more greener. This requires the distribution network to be modernized, flexible, and more smarter. Critical to this is the ERP. The regulations are not yet very conducive and creating the environment for distributors. And I'm not talking about distribution Eskom, but distribution industry to evolve around energy trading, aggregation, and establishment of markets as we move forward, noting most of the generation stuff will be connected to. And then the question is, how do you manage special vehicles, knowing that a pure monopoly investing in and making profit becomes a real challenge for the regulator as you move forward. System operations, we definitely see that distributors and futures have to have a system operator, an energy trader, in supporting the RP as we move forward, and in supporting unlocking prosumers and customers to participate in those energy markets. And the last thing key to this, and I think Lloyd alluded to, the ability for us to take advantage of demand response, grid flexible services, so that we can create a win-win situation between customers, prosumers, energy producers, so that we serve a local problem, a regional problem, and a national problem, because a number of these resources really will have no impact on the national challenge that you have, but it will all come together. So how does this all look into when we look at the global trend around decarbonization? I think enough has been said around there, and there's a lot significant focus on supply side. But I would like to challenge you that supply side is only one side of the coin. The demand side, and really unlocking that demand side, really focus our attention more towards digitalization and transformation required within the distribution space around digitalization, which requires us to, how do we lever and transform our systems to physically create a smarter, modernized network, and obviously support the market, and be it local, regional, or national. And then the decentralization, critical to this is the market construct on how to do that, but at the same time, support the grid operability and capability in a decentralized manner, noting that a number of rooftop panels is not going to create a problem for transmission, but they definitely will create a challenge for distribution. And then the democratization, I know Prof alluded to energy 5.0. I think we still need to get to 5.4, and I think we're all struggling on that. And for that reason, I have not spoken to energy 5.1 and rather alluded to 5.4.0, because for me, that is really unlocking the future for us. And we need a distinct concentration of the business around the digital themes proposed by the World Bank, where asset management invariably will be important to extend the life, productivity, and optimization of decision-making, grid optimization. And if you don't do this, you can't make use of those flexibility and optimization possibilities that you want to have, and the management of the demands at the same, and also to be able to give real-time pricing as you move forward. Customer interface, at the end, we are here for the customer. Customer wants to see it being more transparent, wants to be seen as us as the trusted area. And the critical to this is that how do you put this in the hands of the customer, meaning via a phone or that, and then providing services beyond the customer itself. The reality is that these four themes really transition us into a situation that we actually increase the landscape, threat landscape, and the complexity of the data analysis and engineering of data, and the decision actually moves towards a big challenge around the increase of a cybersecurity threat. So when we talk about, Lloyd talked about standardization, that's why you design those defense barriers within those. And I'm gonna, for the sake of time, leave this. So as we modernize and digitalize, and I'm only focusing on digitalized discussion, Enhancing the customer experience should be key, because we will be unlocking all of this data as we move forward. Transforming what a distributor will be using as a product and business model needs to transform. Increasing operations productivity will be unlocked when you embrace this digitalization. And critical to this is that if you're going to be in the market, you need to be able to do real-time decision making. So in your consideration, you have a flurry of activities, and when you plant that seed, when you water that seed in the foundation to this tree as you grow it, you need to have a smart architecture, smart governance and implementation plan and skills development, because you have to transform your thing. I'm going to draw your attention to the one at the bottom. Enhancing a physical demand-side management program is, and unlocking that is one of the critical things, but you need an advanced DMS system. You need an optic fiber network, telecommunication, wireless network that will assist you. You need a system that can handle your smart metering platforms, the demand side man. You need to consume all of this data. Currently, we're only using about 20% of the data. Most of the other data we access remotely, but you need a proper historian that will actually consume the data for you and process those data. So if those foundational things are not in place, you are not going to start embracing the digitalization, which will unlock the different technologies as we transform into the futures. So yes, we've got a distributor, which is a wise business, a retail business, and I think Hans will talk to maybe those things, two businesses should be fundamentally separate, but we acknowledge currently in the South African context, retail and wires remains, and we have to introduce a distribution system operator and a trader into the future. So how would this concept really work? And I've just simplistically used the JSE. So the energy market sits on top, and that wholesale market really is where we're going to transact in. We got our different traders sitting as Eskom, City Power, Tshwane, City of Cape Town, and they may be aggregators at the bottom, or DNOs, which is network operators, that will regionally aggregate those for you, and you'll be able to work with flexible service providers to unlock that potential that is physically out there. Fundamentally, if we focus on digitalization, it will definitely unlock us to do that aggregation with ease. And there's actually no need for us, the percentage that we pay on aggregation services is significant. And unlocking that digitalization will allow you to do that as you. So what is a distribution system operator of the future? We have to manage the distribution local generation level. We have to act as a neutral operator. That really opens up the market. We have to give easy access to transmission and network customers. And there will be a role for a system operator, network operator, and a role for a distribution energy trader in the future. And maybe those are combined at the moment, and then we will transform into two separate entities with Chinese walls next to each other, and then suddenly it will then transform in that total two independent. But that evolution cannot start. We cannot compare ourselves to a Nordic situation. That market has transformed over the last 15 years. We're only starting this journey as we go down now. The reality is that flexibility is due. There's a lot of concentration on the generation side. And I put the challenge to you. Let's focus on supply side. Let's focus on demand side. That's where we can unlock the potential into the future. I challenge you. It is easy executing demand response options that provides us that flexibility, unlocks the digitalization for us, and actually offer the customer the ability to transform as we move forward. Yes, supply side you need there, but guess what? When you balance a power system, you need both supply and demand. Less focus on supply side, more focus on demand side. I know that's not politically accepted, but I think this transition journey is happening everywhere. I think if we look at the energy Association Internationals clearly said there's a higher variability of supply side, and power system will need to make flexibility a cornerstone of the new market. And that flexibility really sits in the distribution space. It's going to be very difficult in the variability of the supply side if we don't have the ability for us to manage the demands, manage the troughs and those things. We're going to use expensive equipment, batteries, gas, and all of those things. The UK itself is transforming and saying that demand flexibility will dominate over supply flexibility, and it is the single largest potential that you really have on a flexible market. The right incentives is needed in place to manage the overall power system with the distribution system operator. So we can clearly see the transformation needing to happen. And this may be as simple as we got demand objectives, we got flexibility options. I know my time is running out. We have ability to control load. We have the ability to reduce load, shift that load. The one at the bottom is if you don't control, your voltage will go out of control. The one at the bottom, far left, clearly shows us partnering with IPPs can assist our system, i.e. they're using the SVCs or devices on their side and actually control the voltage for us on the 132 in the event of an emergency. So all of this potential would sit in there and literally would service national control, but not necessarily service it all. So there's a need on the power system. There's a product and a service that clearly can be provided to the industry. And the three objectives that we would have is local, regional, and national as we move forward. Two more slides. So there are demands options. There's a significant focus on supply issues, and clearly there needs to be a focus on the demand issues. Clearly there needs to be a supply options in the distribution space that we need to explore. There are current initiatives where we look to. And if we look at a use case in the there are currently a wholesale market sitting, a flexible market predominantly unlocking that distribution market as we move forward. And then the reserve markets managed and controlled in the event of a balance, unbalance created by the market players as we move forward. But for Norway to reach this, it took them 15 to 20 years to get there. And I think we need to be understanding what's our least regret option and where we want to go and how we're going to get there is really depends on proper policy, regulatory mechanisms that will stimulate the market, steer and guide them as we move forward. So in the landscape of a distribution business, SSEG is there, batteries is there, unlocking the 100 megawatts issue is a key issue, microgrids, electric vehicles, these are all potentials sitting there to assist a distributor for a local, regional, or a national need as we move forward. In closing, I am of the view that South African distributors are at the epicenter of this just transition. Distributors and resellers are clearly losing volumes of energy. Opportunity exists to integrate and co-coordinate and co-create this industry with prosumers, customers, energy producers as a whole. Distributors has to modernize, smartify, because that distribution network will become more active. It is also critical that we acknowledge that there's a technical clearance of a bit and a commercial clearance of a bit. And that's the interesting discussion we always have. And then DERs uncoordinated through a grid modernization. And the establishment of it is really important, unlocks a new opportunity, new economy for the distribution business as a whole. IPPs, DERs less than 100 megawatt, SSEGs clearly is the step towards us integrating these DERs. But if we don't embrace digitalization, don't embrace decarbonization, the 4Ds, it will be a problem. And we do not see this as a disruption. We see it as an opportunity to evolve the industry as we move forward. SSEG tariffs, and we can talk a lot about that, And in future, unlocking those services. Critical to us is how do we purchase these services that can be and partner with them as we move forward. Distribution is, Eskom distribution is in the process of putting a system operator together. And we do believe that other distribution, especially the big metros, will definitely have to develop distribution system operator, energy trader, aggregation models, and trading capability as well. But this won't happen with a proper policy framework outlining the future distribution industry. Requires amendments to the ERA, and we know what happened in the ERA itself, and clearly unlicensing will unlock the future greener distribution business and economy for distribution as we move forward. Chair, I want to conclude. Why invest in distribution business? It really requires us to unlock the future of the energy transition, the wholesaler, and a distributed energy market into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Malcolm, and well done. You came in on the mark, 20 minutes and 10 seconds. Thank you. Thank you so much for just the reminder of some of the basics. If we have a look across a lot of the municipalities, we do have concerns about the technical stability as well as the asset condition. And some of those basic building blocks need to be addressed with an industry-wide solution. And I think that is a topic that we're going to come back to in future years, time and time again.